Welcome to the Working Genius podcast, where we discuss anything and everything having to do with the 6 types of working genius and how it impacts your work and your life. I'm Pat Lencioni. I'm your host today, joined by Cody Thompson. Hello, Cody.
Hey, Pat.
Good to have you here. We've got Karen Amador with us. Hi, Karen.
Good afternoon.
We talked you into joining us today on the podcast. We've got Matt, our engineer, off mic. How you doing, Matt? Very good. Today, we are going to talk about what, Cody?
Rebranding enablement.
That's right. The word enablement. We need to rebrand the word. In fact, it was so hard for us to use that in the model around working genius. We had the first 4 done and we said, what's the right word for what this is? And we resisted enablement. We resisted it. And we kept coming back and saying, that really is the right word. It's just too bad people associate it with helping an alcoholic or a drug addict or anybody else with a problem stay in that problem.
Right.
And so we said, screw it. We are going to rebrand this word because enabling others and enabling work is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's almost worth even going back over some of the other words we tried to use, because at one point it was support.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they do that really, really well.
The genius of support.
But that didn't capture it. And then another one, the word empower, has just been brutalized and stripped of all of its meaning. And so the idea that there are people in the world that are uniquely gifted at coming alongside and helping things happen. Enablement is exactly that word. And it's too bad that this, we have to do this whole rebrand, but it's a wonderful thing that we want people to know as a real genius.
Right. And 95% of the things that people enable are good.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, I have to admit, as an enabler, you had to really sell me on that idea because I didn't like it. I resisted.
Yeah. And that's why you're on this podcast, because Cody and I have enablement as one of our working frustrations.
Right.
And so we
were like, we probably shouldn't do this podcast on our own, because we'd be like, hey, we're bad at this.
And it's not one of Matt's geniuses now, we know. So we said, we have to find somebody with this genius, and it is Karen. And of course, because she's good at enablement, we were able to convince her, because we really needed her help, and she agreed to help us.
Took some convincing, but I'm here.
Yeah. All right. So in addition to the problem with it being associated with like an addiction or something like that, the other problem we have is that people that have this as a genius don't really see it as a genius at all. They downplay it. And you're one of those, Karen. Tell us about that.
I know. When you first pointed that out, just because it feels pretty natural to me, it definitely didn't feel like a genius at all.
Right, which is the whole point of the working genius model. It's natural. It's a God-given gift you have.
Right.
But why is it so hard to convince people with this gift that it's really, truly a gift?
Because you're responding to people, I think. It doesn't feel like something that perhaps you're creating on your own.
Yeah.
You're responding to a situation, and it just feels like you're helping. Or someone has come with an expressed need, and you're simply responding to that need.
No, that makes sense. It makes sense. What's ironic about that is I'm a discerner, but I'm discerning someone else's idea.
Mm-hmm.
And all the types need the other types.
Right.
But there's something unique about people with enablement that gives them kind of a guilt for acknowledging that they're really good at it.
Right. It's so interesting. One of the things that I've enjoyed the most is after the discovery of the model is that it gives you language and an appreciation and the ability to celebrate what other people are good at that you're not. Like in the same way that like when you're sitting here downplaying it, I'm looking at you like, I cannot believe that she doesn't see how important this is. And not just in getting work done, but like when you don't have something. It's the same way when you're not an inventor and you watch an inventor come up with an idea and you go, oh, I don't have that. That looks amazing. That's like magic. The same thing is true of enablement. When you watch someone that really, like we talk about them as being some of the best team players on a team, they're ready and willing to help in any given situation. And they don't have this pretense of, oh, well, wait, actually, before I help you, let me do my own. Like my thing is to go, hey, I don't have any enablement, so I'll discern and galvanize. I'll turn everything into, hey, let me actually spin a bunch of people else up to help you with something,
right. And that gets to how this whole podcast today started. As Matt sitting here said, we were talking about how certain kinds of people feel guilty if they don't have a certain genius. Like if you're the CEO of a company, you don't have the genius of galvanizing, you feel like, oh, and I don't. And so I feel like, oh, that makes me bad. And if you're an entrepreneur and you don't have the genius of invention, you don't have to be the inventor to be an entrepreneur. But this one, if you don't have enablement and you're a mother. Mothers feel terrible. Like that's the definition. Or you work in a church, or even you just call yourself a Christian.
Right.
And I think, how can I be a kind person if I am not good at enablement, which is responding to someone else's needs in the way they need it?
Right.
So tell us, Karen, that we're not bad people for not being good at enablement.
No, you're bad. You're
On
not
record.
bad people.
She goes, "You're bad."
Yeah,
You're bad. You're kind of bad. No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking. No, but I think what the beauty of the working genius model is that it is actually now placed each genius in its proper context.
Right.
You know, and so that, you know, getting work done, it's like it's going to require each and every single genius at some time or another. You know, bring in the enabler too early on in the process is not necessarily all that helpful, right?
Right.
So
it does give it the right context. It's so interesting because you're a discerner enabler.
Yes.
And
this is interesting. Like this other letter goes with it.
Yeah. So there are enablers who are enablement tenacity. They come in along the end of things. They help. They respond to the galvanizer, and then their E kicks in, and they respond to the passion and energy of the galvanizer, and then they go and finish the thing.
In fact, we work with a woman named Carol who's not working today. She works 1 day a week. She's at my house today with my wife because we're redesigning our kitchen. We had to pack up all of our stuff. And Laura's like, "Could you help me with this?" She's like, "Sure. I will pack that kitchen so efficiently and so effectively." I do not understand how she can do that.
Yeah. You want to look at how do you think you're going to go about this thing? And this is, again, we say this on every podcast, but it continues to ring true, is we all make every meeting, every conversation, every interaction with another person meet our working genius.
Right.
So it makes sense that you do that. It makes sense that we feel guilty for not having E, because when someone comes to us and says, "Can you help me with this?" we want to redesign what they need help with.
Yeah, we were talking today in the hallway about if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, I'm lost in my career. Can you help me?" I'd be like, "Oh yeah." Because see, I get to invent and discern. If they said, "Hey, I want to be a computer programmer. Can you put me in contact with people who could help me find that job?" And I would be kind of locked up like,
right.
Can I find somebody else to help me?
Exactly.
Because I'm not good at that.
Right.
I don't like just helping on other people's terms. And I feel guilty even admitting that into a microphone.
Right. Well, I mean, even with mine, there's a little bit of nuance because I have that discernment first. So I will look at the situation and think about how I can maybe help them. I will definitely help them. I won't walk away from that or shrink from it.
Right.
But I will apply some discernment and maybe suggest some other ways of doing it.
Well, I love what you said before the podcast. You said, my favorite thing is when people come and ask for advice from me. Because that is
100%.
a discerner enablement dream, right?
Yes.
When they have no prescribed, like, here's what I think I want. They're like, hey, you're like, one, your enablement kicks in. I want to help you. And two, your discernment kicks in to say, oh, I can help you figure it out. And so not only do I want to help you, I can do it in the right way.
Right.
Exactly.
And so you're less likely to, similar to Pat, is to like blindly help someone. But advice, when they come with an open hand saying, can you, I don't know what to do. That's your favorite thing.
Yeah. It's a combination of empathy and discernment for me in that moment. Like my favorite thing is when someone says, I'm dealing with this issue right now. Can we go for a walk tonight? Yes, that's my favorite thing to do. Like I need to pick your brain on what to do in this situation. And so it's a little bit of both. It's both my geniuses all wrapped up in one, I think.
Well, and the nuance is important because it is, everybody has two letters, so it does play off of each other. But when we talk about strictly the enablement thing, I was thinking about this church context that we talk about sometimes where there's no enablement. What it can feel like on a team that doesn't have it is that people don't go together. They go alone. Like if you go from galvanizing, you skip enablement and you go to tenacity, it's like, yeah, we're probably getting a lot done. The morale and the camaraderie and the like teamwork side of it doesn't feel like, it's just like somebody stirs up some momentum around something and we all go execute.
There's something definitely missing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, Karen, I want to ask you a question. You're a mother. You a mama?
I am.
What would you say to a woman who said, I'm a mom, I love my children, I love my family, but I am not good at enablement? There's a lot of guilt that goes with that.
So much of it is about our intentions, I think, even for mothers. You know, as long as you're coming at it from a standpoint of love, even if you don't have the enablement, I think there's other ways that you can help. That's where applying your other geniuses come into play.
Right.
I get that you feel guilty about it, and it seems like that would be something that all mothers should have. But I mean, that's not, enablement isn't always called for in a situation in parenthood.
Right.
So that would be my response to that.
Yeah, that's a crippling guilt. You know, we were talking to my wife Laura the other day, enablement isn't one of her strengths. It's her third. So it's a working competency, but she feels so bad asking other people to do things that she thinks I'm supposed to do because I'm the mom. And they're not mothering things. They're really more maintenance things at the house.
Logistics and things like that. Right. Yeah. And you shouldn't mix the two either, you know?
Right.
Well, and the same is true. Like I love the example you used when you say like leaders or CEOs or anyone in a leadership position can feel guilty for not being a G.
Right.
And while E happens to be the primary one that people might feel guilty for in a family environment, you can feel guilty for any of them. Like, the reason I bring that up is Lindsay and I were just having a conversation where there's this other couple and the guy has I, so he's an inventor, and they're always doing these incredible like things with their kids. And we're just like,
it crushes me.
It was like a 4-day weekend or whatever. And we're like, what should we do? And we can't think of any really good ideas. And it's like, we feel guilt. You look and you go, oh man, I don't have that. So while E is the topic of this one, you can feel guilty for any of them in any context, at work, at church, at home, any of that.
Absolutely. And that's not what we're meant to do. Now, all of us have to E sometimes. It's just much harder for me and you, Cody, than it is for you, Karen.
Right.
And it's nice to get some grace for that, but it's also not an excuse for not helping.
Sorry, honey, I don't have any E.
And I do think it's worth repeating over and over again, because it's no joke, every single person that we've interacted with around Working Genius that gets enablement has the same initial reaction that you had, Karen, which is, are you sure that's like a genius? Are you sure that's helpful? And it is just, you can't overstate how additive it is to a team and how great it is to be able to look at that and appreciate what comes along with that genius. Because really, Working Genius, it puts all of these on a level playing field. You need them all.
Right.
And there's this tendency to go, well, that one's not as important as another one. They're all required. And this group of people, I kind of wanted to call this like the enablement revolution. Like, I want everyone who has enablement, as someone who appreciates it so much, to realize how critical they are in the process of work and how much what they do is appreciated, even if it's not been that recognizable or we can't call it out. I think this gives us more language to do that.
It's so funny how these guilts fall together, because like people that have it don't think it's that big of a deal. And I want to say to them, no, you don't understand. I can't do what you do.
Yeah.
But then I feel guilty for admitting that.
Yeah.
So I might not say it. But the truth of the matter is, people that are really good at coming alongside and providing help exactly when I find them invaluable. I wish I could do it. I can't. And so I want to celebrate them, but they're reluctant to be celebrated too.
Can I add a little wrinkle to this conversation?
Sure.
Okay, because I know I wanted to end on a high for enablers, but as an enabler, I also want to say one thing, and that is, there are times when I actually feel like I need to rein in my E a little bit, my enablement.
Well, not every situation calls for us to. I shouldn't invent a solution to every problem.
Yes.
So yes.
And I that's maybe perhaps where my discernment comes in. Like, is sometimes when somebody is asking for something, there's going to be times where it doesn't make sense for me to help them. They're asking for something, or the conversation doesn't warrant enablement in that instance. And so, I have to guard for that at times.
Yeah.
Yes,
and so,
absolutely.
Well, I think that's a great thing for people to hear, because it's so applicable that when we talk about Working Genius, not all work happens linearly, but you said earlier, you have to know the right context. And let's just give like a real practical example in a meeting. Like, so we're in a meeting and you are a DE, Karen, discernment and enablement. And Pat comes up with an idea. The very next thing you should do is exercise discernment and not go directly to enablement, right? So it's like, really, inventors want feedback for the idea before we go to implementation. But when you have two letters, you have to be aware of that, because you're just as naturally inclined to go, okay, should I go implement? Should I start? Is that a call to action? And we have to know where we're at. Like, oh no, we're inventing. If we were galvanizing around that idea, that's the exact moment where enablers feel like, oh, now it's my chance. somebody used an analogy the other day that's sort of like baton handoff. It's like a relay race.
Yep.
And if you miss one of those steps, it can get really discombobulating. So you're totally right that there are times that are not appropriate, but if you use it right in that appropriate moment, man, it's invaluable for everyone around you.
Hey, I thought of a great story to end this on. The character in television that has the least amount of enablement was Ron Swanson. If you ever watched that show Community, Ron Swanson was
Parks and Rec.
I'm sorry, Parks and Rec. Thank you, Matt. Parks and Rec. He was like the head of Parks and Rec department, right? And Leslie worked for him, the main character. But he hated when people came to him. And so they reorganized and made him the reception person. And they put him right in the middle of the office, and people were going to come to him and ask for things. And he was so upset that he built a circular desk and a swivel chair. And whenever people came in to ask him, he would just swivel away from them.
To his back to them,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
And keep swerving away because he hated responding to the needs of others.
Yep.
And then there's other people who are just like, I'll help you with everything. And eventually they get crushed because they just keep getting asked.
Yep.
But there was a person without enablement. I don't think he felt guilty for it. If you don't
Swiveling
have
his
it,
chair.
that's just not who you are. If you do have it, celebrate that and let other people celebrate you. Karen, thank you for agreeing to be on our podcast and enabling us today in a very good way.
You bet.
Great to have you here. Great to have everybody here. We have a couple more of these to go before we end ours for the summer. And so we'll look forward to seeing you or talking to you next time on the Working Genius podcast. God bless.